Welcome to Daily Life Connection. Thanks for joining me again today. I know I say that every day, but I really do mean it. I am so honored that you join with me and listen to these little talks and participate in them. Today, I was reading in Luke rather, chapter 14, and there's an interesting little phrase in this here. It says, on one occasion, when Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. They were watching him closely. Today, the theme of my talk is the God who doesn't mind you taking a close look at him. You know, I teach the motorcycle training course, and I love to ride my motorcycle, and I think I'm fairly skilled at it. But there are times, when I go out to do a demonstration on my motorcycle, and I'm kind of feeling, I want to say to the people watching is, don't watch too closely because you might see that I'm not quite as good as I think I am, or you might see the flaws in my performance here, and that my skills aren't quite up to snuff today. And that's just especially true. We as trainers talk about that sometimes. Sometimes we'll get to the course and somebody say, I just don't feel like demonstrating that emergency braking today. I just don't feel like I'm in the game. I don't feel like my skills are up to the level that they should be today. I'm just not feeling into it. That's never going to happen with God. There's never going to be a day when you wake up and he says, don't look too closely now because I'm not sure my godliness is up to par today. Never going to happen. Is it never going to happen? Our God is a God that we can examine closely. He doesn't mind that. Jesus wasn't upset with the fact they were watching him. He was upset with the fact that they were trying to limit him. They were trying to find what they felt was a flaw in him and limit him. God doesn't mind our questions. He doesn't mind our observations. He doesn't mind us striving and struggling and wrestling with who he is and with his qualities and his characters. He doesn't mind that. It's okay. God doesn't mind being looked at. Sometimes somebody will say, well, don't put my life under a microscope because you might find things there that people don't see. God's never going to say that. God's okay with us putting him under a microscope. I think one of the great gifts my parents gave me in growing up, they allowed me to examine God, to question some of the things that we believed about or taught about God and who he was. And it was like my parents just they had a confidence in God that if we question and ask and observe and take a close look at him, it's never going to end badly. He's never going to look bad in our sight. We're just going to find out more amazing things about him, not less. We're never going to find out that our God's going to disappoint us in who he is. In fact, the opposite is true. There are some things about God that I have thought over the years like, that kind of disappoints me. But as I've examined and as I've looked at it, I realize usually it's my misunderstanding of who he was, or something somebody told me that wasn't true about who he was, or that there was a dimension to it that was so much beyond what I had thought in my own limited little ability. Again, I go back to the motorcycle training thing, and many times we have people who come to take the course, and after an hour or two into the training session, their comment is this: it's so much harder than I thought. There's so much more to it than I thought. This is really challenging me. And I love that because to me, that's how I see God. The more I get into him, the more I am, wow, this is challenging me. This is more than I thought. And then, those same people, often a few hours later in the training, a smile breaks out. And often at the end of the training, they will say, this is so much better than I thought. This is so much more fun than I expected it to be. And it's because they pressed through those moments of, wow, this is not what I thought. This is tougher than I thought. And I believe that's true with our God. I believe that's why he doesn't mind us looking closely at who he is. Because as we do, and it may be a struggle to work through the theology or the whatever of it all, but as we get closer and can see who he really is and become active in participating in who he is, it's like that. It's like, wow, this is amazing. This is wonderful. This is glorious. Our God doesn't mind us examining who he is. So go ahead. Ask your questions of him. And ask the tough ones. He doesn't mind, because he knows that the more we examine who he is, the closer we get to the truth of who he is, the more life explodes in us, the more awesome he becomes in our understanding of him, and the more we are drawn to him. He is the God who doesn't mind us taking a close look. God bless. We'll talk again tomorrow.